Imagine a day when the U.S. stock market is sinking, and one stock suddenly jumps. That's exactly what happened on October 10th, 2025. President Trump posted a flurry of messages on his platform, Truth Social, blaming China for becoming very hostile and threatening to slam Chinese imports with massive new tariffs. Tech stocks plunged. But MP Materials, ticker MP, a U.S. rare earth mining company, spiked about 11%. How come? In short, Trump's comments put a spotlight on rare earth elements, and investors suddenly piled into the only U.S. rare earth miner. Trump announced a 100% tariff on Chinese goods, effective November 1st, as retaliation for what he called China's extraordinarily aggressive export controls on rare earths. He warned that China's moves adding controls on rare earths and other tech exports were choking global supplies. In a Truth Social post, he accused Beijing of holding the world captive with its rare earth dominance and said there is no reason to meet Xi Jinping over this issue. The market took it badly. The Nasdaq fell 2% and the S&P 500 fell 0.8% that day, but rare earth stocks surged. The Economic Times reported that on Friday, investors turned to rare earth stocks as China's export restrictions created supply concerns, noting that MP Materials surged 11% to $80.29, even while big tech slid. Rare earth elements are a group of 17 metals, E.G, neodymium, praseodymium, dysprosium, that are critical for modern technology. They are used to make very strong permanent magnets and components in everything from smartphones to electric vehicles, EVs, and clean energy gear. For example, neodymium magnets made from rare earth oxides are what power EV motors and wind turbines. Hindustan Times explains that rare earths are crucial for making smartphones, EVs, wind turbines, and missiles. In other words, they power key green and defense technologies, electric vehicles and electronics. Rare earth magnets give EV motors their torque and make smartphone speakers/gyroscopes possible. Defense gear. U.S. fighter jets like the F-35, submarines, Tomahawk missiles, radar systems and drones all use rare earth magnets. Who controls them? China dominates the supply chain. It mines about 70% of the world's rare earth ores and refines over 90% of the world's rare earth magnets. That gives China huge leverage. When China recently tightened export controls on these elements, it set off alarm bells in Washington and on Wall Street, because these elements are so strategically important and so concentrated in China. Trump and other U.S. officials have been pushing to build domestic sources. In 2020, Trump signed an executive order noting that the U.S. was reliant on foreign sources, particularly China, for approximately 80% of its rare earth materials. The recent flare-up is just the latest chapter. MP Materials, NYSE. MP is the only major rare earth mining and processing company in the U.S. It owns the Mountain Pass mine in California, one of the world's richest rare earth deposits. In fact, Mountain Pass is the only operational rare earth mine and processing plant in the United States. Back in the 1960s, 90s, Mountain Pass supplied most of the world's rare earths. And today MP Materials is ramping up to supply everything from raw ores to finished magnets. MP describes itself as America's only fully integrated rare earth producer, with capabilities spanning the entire supply chain, from mining and processing to advanced metallization and magnet manufacturing. In plain English, that means MP not only digs up rare earth ores and refines them into pure oxides, like neodymium praseodymium oxide, is also building a U.S. factory to assemble powerful rare earth magnets used in EVs and other tech. This downstream step is big. It's the first U.S. facility making NdPr magnets, reducing reliance on Chinese factories. Because MP Materials is so unique, U.S. government has taken notice. In mid-2025, the Department of Defense agreed to buy about $400 million of MP stock, making DoD MP's largest shareholder. Apple also quietly invested $500 million to help develop U.S. rare earth supply. The idea is to secure this strategic resource at home. As a result of all this support, MP stock has run up strongly. It's been the top performer in its index so far in 2025, up on the order of 300 to 400% year-to-date, largely on hope of booming demand and government backing. So when a new trade threat surfaces, investors see MP as a play on domestic supply. When Trump spotlighted rare earths and hinted China might cut off or restrict exports, U.S. traders jumped on any potential beneficiary. MP Materials is the obvious one. If Chinese rare earth exports dry up, U.S. industries will need another source. And that source could be Mountain Pass. In that scenario, MP's business looks even more valuable. The spike in MP stock is really about market psychology. Traders fear China could weaponize rare earths, so they buy the dip in MP. The Economic Times noted that investors reacted to the trade news by buying rare earth names. MP Materials, for example, surged 11% to $80.29 on October 10th. On the same day, tech giants like AMD and Nvidia were falling. In other words, this was a safe haven bid for the specific sector that Trump singled out. Remember, at its heart MP is a small cap mining company, market cap a few billion, so a move of 10 to 15% is not unusual on big news. Still, an 11% jump is significant, especially during a broad market slide. It underscores how strongly geopolitics can move tiny corners of the market. The recent surge in MP Materials shares comes from concerns that U.S.-China trade tensions will spotlight domestic rare earth production. If you follow individual stocks, keep an eye on geopolitical news like this. They can cause sudden moves. In this case, one key bright spot in a down market was MP Materials, due to its role in the rare earth supply chain. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice. Always do your own research and make investment decisions at your own risk.